I just finished reading this book that I received from Stephen Greenfield, Takagi Oriemon, Budo Hero of Shiroishi, a tale of martial and spiritual training in medieval Japan. This book is a translation of a book called Budo Shiroishi no E by, I think it's Mamiya Hyoemon, which is basically the biography of Takagi Oriemon. Or I wouldn't say, well, I would say biography, but it's more of a biography like the way that, the Musashi biographies are, or the Yagyu Ryubei biographies are. It's hard to know which one is mythology and which one is fact at some points. In some points it's blatantly obvious which one is mythology and which one is fact, but this book, like I said, this book was sent to me by Stephen Greenfield. He was the editor. The original was translated into modern Japanese by Manaka, and then his students, let's see, I think it was Robert Gray, yep, Maurizio Mandrino, and Eric Shahan. They worked on translating this book into English. Yeah, so this tells, if you're not familiar with who Takagi Oriemon is, he's the one who founded Takagi Yoshinryu, we have all these branches, Takagi Takagi Yoshinryu, Hantai Takagi Yoshinryu, Hantai Yoshinryu, all this kind of stuff. And those, if you're Bujinkan, Genbukan, Jinkan, those are style that we practice. This book is really interesting because it kind of contradicts most of the stuff that you read online when you're looking up the history of Takagi Yoshinryu. Like, you see on Bujinkan sites, a lot of people be like, Takagi Oriemon founded this school after his father was killed and he mastered all these martial arts from a guy named Ito when he was 20 years old. But if you look at the actual history that's in this book, when he was 20 years old, he had just barely started training. He received the name of Takagi Oriemon when he was 19 years old. It was given to him by the lord of their area, Katakura Kojiro. That's another thing. This was like, when I see Shiroishi, apparently that's how the place name is pronounced, but when I see the kanji, I always think of Shiroishi. So, and that's also how it was written in here a few times, just like Katakura Kojiro, sometimes written as Katakura Shojiro. So I caught that a few times. It might be a little confusing for people who don't speak Japanese to understand that, like, it's the same word, but yeah, because there's a lot of name changes in this book all over the place. Because his original name is Inatomi Umon, and because he has a brother Inatomi Samon. But then, from Inatomi Umon, he changes his name to Takagi Oriemon. So, there's lots of name changes. Another interesting thing is here, it talks about him studying Mutoryu Sojutsu. So, that's the art of the spear. But, as we know, Takagi Yoshinryu, we don't train with spears, we don't train with naginata. But it's all in this book that he was a master of that weapon. So, it's always interesting to want to know where it went to. What else is there? Also, he learns Bajutsu, horsemanship. He learns he learns Hojutsu, which is gunnery, and he learns Kajutsu, explosive techniques. So there's all this stuff that's in here. It's really interesting to know, but for some reason we don't have it anymore. So it's always interesting to want to know where that went, if it broke up on the lines, or what exactly happened to it. But this basically covers his journey from when he leaves Shiroishi and goes on Musha Shugyo, which is a warrior's pilgrimage. And he travels around Japan and then comes back. The book ends with him returning to his hometown. So I think that instead of, oh man, I'm going to sneeze. It is it's pretty much biographical. It's somewhat historical. Lots of mythological stuff. Lots of him picking up horses by his hands. He always throwing boulders, always lifting up boulders, constantly in this book, lifting up boulders. Um, what else? There's one part where he's staying at an inn, and he gets attacked by, there was a thief who set up a rock to fall on his head and crush it while he was asleep. So then the thief comes in, or I think it's two thieves actually, catches one, breaks his neck, rips his head off, and then grabs the other guy and rips his, no, I think he hits the other guy in the head and his head comes off, and then he leaves a note that has his name saying that, I was attacked by these two guys and ripped their heads off, Takagi Oriemon. It's an awesome story, funny stuff. Lots of stuff about meeting Kamuso. He meets Tengu. He exercises at least like 4 ghosts in this book. No, maybe like 5 actually. But it's really it's a really interesting read if you're just reading it for a fiction aspect, and if you're reading it for a historical aspect, it's also very interesting to look at. We have where he takes his disciples. One of them, it's really interesting because it mentions the name. He's going by the name of Toranosuke, Takagi Toranosuke, but there's a part where it talks about the tiger becomes a horse, or the horse becomes a tiger, and then if you know the lineage of Takagi Yoshinobu, you see that there's a Takagi Umanosuke. There's not a Takagi Toranosuke, so they might be the same person, but that's not clear in the book. I think, and even in the notes, there's these later comments where Mamiya addresses this, and it says that they're not sure if that's the same person. But I think it would be pretty obvious that it was. This is just really interesting. Just lots of talk about various disciples he picks up. Always, I really wish that we've had even more information to read here to figure out where everything is going with the lineage, because I want to know so much more. This book is get you really interested. It's a great book. I definitely recommend it. I think that the main point of this book, though, from the way that everything's being portrayed, is to try and teach you how to have the proper attitude of, a martial artist. The way that the name is implied, the Takagi, the willow, the whole philosophy of that, the bending, not breaking, and he's always trying to be the most polite guy. He's never trying to show how powerful he is. I think that's the whole idea, is just to let everything, slide, just go with it and just not get knocked down. So I think that it's, in a way, trying to teach you values like that, in a way trying to entertain you, in a way telling you a biography, in a way telling you history, but just buy it yourself and read it. It's a great book. So links down below, just awesome stuff. Just lots of silly adventures, lots of interesting stories, lots of traveling, lots of stuff that makes you want to learn more stuff. So buy it. Takagi Oriemon, Budo Hero of Shiroishi, A Tale of Martial and Spiritual Training in Medieval Japan. Awesome book. I wish that people still got to wander around like this and just visit all the different dojo and train and just have these wacky adventures. Buy this book.